the Stafford Voice.
Making soldiers repay enlistment bonuses. Where do we even start? Facts. I like facts. Not the ones that come across on the fax machine. These are real, actual facts. So that's where we're going to start. Nearly 10,000 California National Guard soldiers are being ordered to repay their enlistment bonuses. Now, these bonuses were issued a decade ago when there was a, quote, shortage of troops. And this came by way of a Pentagon audit that revealed overpayments by the California Guard, who was eager to, quote, fill ranks and hit enlistment targets. So far, they've been able to recover more than $22 million. Let me repeat that. $22 million so far they have recovered from our soldiers who put themselves on the line. And John over on the YouTube side says the technical term they're calling it is clawback, aka return of bonuses. Those bonuses were issued before Obama. This is effed up. Yes, I completely agree. So let me ask you this. Who wins and who loses? The government wins because they get their money back. The veterans are the ones who lose. Actually, we are all the ones losing. We're all the ones losing. Things like this keep people from wanting to go in, knowing that they're going to get screwed over. Things like this cause veterans to just throw in the towel and end it all. One of the absolute first things they tell you when you go in, on day one, they tell you, keep a record of every piece of paperwork. And, 20 years ago, when I first went in, I didn't get a bonus, but some people did. And they were told, keep your paperwork because the Army is going to try and screw you over. The Army is going to try and screw you over. So keep your paperwork because by the time you get to your duty station, you're going to have to prove to your S1, 2, and S3 that you do in fact get an enlistment bonus. So a lot of these guys, they go in, they get a re-enlistment bonus. And we're talking, look, I don't know if you know this, but the men and women who serve our country in the military, in all branches, they get paid chump change. A lot of the times, the guy at the local gas station is getting paid more than these guys. To put that into perspective, these guys make roughly the same amount that they were getting a bonus for. They make less than $20,000. A lot of these guys were getting somewhere in the range of a $10,000 to $15,000 re-enlistment bonus. Is that a hell of a lot of money? You bet. A lot of these guys went to college with that money. A lot of these guys were able to finally buy a house and put a down payment on something. Or at least help them be able to, scrape by. The men and women that go into the military, they don't do it for the money. They do it for the love of their country. To take back this little bit of money that means so much to these men and women is absolutely absurd. So let's put things into perspective, shall we? Here's the real stories. This comes from Christopher Van Meter, a 42-year-old former Army captain, Iraq veteran from Manteca, California. He says, quote, "These bonuses were used to keep people in. This is an interview, obviously, after he says that he has refinanced his home mortgage to repay $25,000 in re-enlistment bonuses and the $21,000 in student loan repayments that the Army says he shouldn't have received. He says, quote, "People like me just got screwed." How so? Well, here's the personal side that nobody ever wants to talk about. In Iraq, Van Meter was thrown from an armored vehicle turret and later awarded a Purple Heart for his combat injuries after the vehicle detonated a buried roadside bomb. What should the government do in his case? I think if you have any heart of compassion at all, you would say, look, we're not going to send that letter out, and we're not going to collect from him. He's done enough. He can have it. What's another story? How about Susan Haley, an LA native and former Army Master Sergeant who deployed to Afghanistan in 2008, who says that she sends the Pentagon $650 a month. That's almost as much, if not more, than most people on Obamacare pay for a month for crappy health care. And she's paying back something that she signed a contract into, that the government obviously doesn't give a crap about. Because they're better than us. How much does this hurt Susan Haley? How much does it hurt Master Sergeant Susan Haley, who put her time in? $650 a month. Okay, well, you know what? That is 1/4 of her income to pay down a $20,000 bonus that the Guard says was given to her improperly. She's on record as saying, "I feel totally betrayed." She's 47 years old and she's served 26 years in the Army, along with her husband and oldest son, a medic who lost his leg in combat in Afghanistan. She now lives in Kempner, Texas, and worries that they may have to sell their home there to repay the bonuses. Referring to her 6-year enlistment, quote, "They'll get their money, but I want those years back." I'm sorry, but this stuff really pisses me off. You want to talk about demoralizing one of the very structures that holds our country together? This is it. You can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. But over 20 years ago, in the 80s, there was a Russian defective, a Russian KGB defective that came out and said this was one of their points, that they were going to demoralize the country. They were going to strip the strength right from underneath us without even really firing a single shot. I think we can probably put a check mark next to that one. And yes, John, it was Yuri Bezmenov. How about another personal story? Robert Richmond, an Army sergeant, first class, SFC, who was then living in Huntington Beach, said that he re-enlisted after being told he qualified for a $15,000 bonus as a Special Forces soldier. Obviously, the dude's a bad... Police your language, Stafford. Police your language. The money was going to give him, quote, breathing room, who had already gone through a divorce after an already deployment to Afghanistan in 2002 and again in 2003. And in 2007, his Special Forces company was sent to Iraq, to the Iraq town of Hila, 60 miles south of Baghdad, in an area known as the Triangle of Death, because of how intense the fighting was. Richmond conducted hundreds of missions against insurgents over the next year. In one, a roadside bomb exploded by his vehicle, knocking him out and leaving him with a permanent back and brain injuries. He was stunned to receive a letter from California Guard headquarters in 2014. Yes, that's right. In 2014, he got a letter. They've been holding this story hostage until now. Anyway, this letter told him that he needed to repay the $15,000 and a warning that he faced quote-unquote debt collection action if he failed to comply. He went on record as saying, quote, "I signed a contract that literally risked my life, risked my life to fulfill. We want somebody in the government, anybody, to say this is wrong and we'll stop going after this money." Unquote. So, should we worry at all? Should we worry? I mean, obviously, if they could stop it, they would. Look, Major General Matthew Beavers, deputy commander of the California Guards, said, quote, "At the end of the day, the soldiers ended up paying the largest price. We'd be more than happy to absolve these people of their debts. We just can't do it. We'd be breaking the law." Oh, that's right. We're going to wash our hands of it because, after all, we're the government. We can break the law. We can write the law as we do it. Because we're elite. So you see, maybe the system is rigged. Oh, hot dang. On Sunday, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California said in a statement that the Department of Defense should, quote, "waive these repayments," and that the House, quote, "will investigate these reports to ensure our soldiers are fully honored for their service. It is disgraceful that the men and women who answered their country's call to duty following September 11th are now facing forced repayments of bonuses offered to them. Our military heroes should not shoulder the burden of military recruiters' faults from over a decade ago. They should not owe for what was promised during a difficult time in our country. Rather, we are the ones who owe a debt for the great sacrifices our heroes have made, some of whom, unfortunately, paid the ultimate sacrifice." Bravo, McCarthy. But are you only talking about what you want to see done? Or are you actually going to put your shoulder to the wheel and push it along? Now, I do want to give a shout out to Representative Darrell Issa, who penned a letter to Defense Secretary Ash Carter. He requested that the chairman of the House and Senate Armed Services Committees include language in the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act to waive all of the fees and penalties being imposed on soldiers and veterans. In a statement that he made just today, he says, quote, "It is unconscionable that the responsibility for paying for bureaucratic malfeasance and corruption over a decade ago is being laid at the feet of the heroes who put themselves in harm's way to keep our nation safe. The Department of Defense should forgive these debts immediately." I am beyond awestruck that this stuff has been going on behind the scenes for roughly 2 years, if not longer than that. And the fact that it is just now coming out in the middle of one of the most ignoramus contested elections